Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege and joy to be able to host to the official visit President of the Republic of Latvia and my friend Egila Levita. May I first say a couple of things by way of introduction. Usually I don't do this at press conferences, but first may I briefly introduce our guest, my friend. We said that it doesn't really happen quite often for two statesmen to meet who have so actively participated in the creation of their countries, in the creation of the independent Republic of Slovenia and in the restoration of the independence of the Republic of Latvia. May I say that our guest, President of Latvia, had an important impact on the drafting of fundamental constitutional documents on the restoration of their statehood. He was Vice Prime Minister. He also worked at the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg. He worked at the Court of Justice in Luxembourg. Now he's President of the Latvian Republic. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a personality who left a big and important mark over the last 30 years in Latvia. And it is my personal privilege and honor to call the gentleman also my friend. Since his election, we met on several occasions, particularly on the fringes of multilateral conferences, most recently in Rome, some 2 weeks ago when we were hosted by President Mattarella. We also meet to discuss topical issues, and today as well we first had an in-camera meeting, and then also during the meeting of both delegations we established and found out that with regard to most issues our opinions are rather similar. In this sense, I would like to say that we share a very similar opinion on the significance of Europe for both of our countries, of course for the 27 member states as a whole. In the light of the 30th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations, and this is an anniversary that we will be celebrating in 2 days, this is also a very nice coincidence, I believe, namely that the Latvian president could visit us on the eve of the 30 years anniversary of diplomatic relations. This is when we were recognized by Latvia. So this too is an important breakthrough, a milestone in the relationships between our two countries. Furthermore, we assessed that it was very important and of extreme significance for both countries to become members of the European Union. We want to nurture the European Union. We understand the diversity which decorates our common homeland, but at the same time we would wish for a greater efficiency. I suggest or suppose that this will require and call for transformation in the next years and decades. So this transformation will need to take place through a lot of dialogue, through the search for many compromises, but we both believe that it is worthwhile to do so, that this is also important for the sovereignty of both countries, that we have a strong Europe, and this is also important for our influence on the global stage. I would assess our talk as very important also because of two further issues that we discussed. The first concerns the Western Balkans, and the other one, the Eastern Partnership. The Eastern Partnership is important to Latvia, and the Western Balkans is important to Slovenia. But both these issues are important for both our countries. First, a couple of words on the Western Balkans. For the time permitting, of course, we will also have further opportunities to talk in the next 2 days, also to get into more detail. But now we found out that our stances are very similar. The situation in the Western Balkans requires a faster enlargement of the European Union to this part of Southeastern Europe. I think this is good for the development of these countries, but at this moment we believe that this is also important for the safety, security and stability. So we wish that the summit next week that will take place in Ljubljana and will be devoted to the enlargement of the European Union to the Western Balkans, that it will bring some new insights on the significance of enlarging to the Western Balkans. And if there is interest on your part, we can discuss more to this respect in responding to your questions. And then the second topic of our discussion were the relations with the Russian Federation. It is important for Slovenia to understand the concerns and also fears that countries that are direct neighbors of the Russian Federation might have, particularly due to their historic experience following the Second World War with the Russian Federation, or more correctly, with the Soviet Union. Slovenia does not have such an experience, but for that it should not be indifferent for or to the worries that exist in the countries that had such an experience. I think that this is extremely important if we want to understand each other well and be friends. It was also very precious to me that our guest informed me of his views on the European perspective for the countries in the Eastern Partnership. At the end of this week, I will be visiting Moldavia, and some recommendations, some observations and views expressed by President were very useful to me in that respect. I think that also in this respect, both countries can be of mutual assistance. They can help each other in trying to understand the complexity of both the Western Balkans, where perhaps we can be more exact, but also when it comes to understanding the complexity of the Eastern Partnership and the relationships with the Russian Federation, where undoubtedly the experience and the vicinity of Latvia can prove beneficial to us. May I conclude? There are many things that bring the two nations and countries together. And first of them, by all means, is that we act responsibly in order to make sure that our children can enjoy a safe and peaceful future. This is very much related also to the green policies, digital policies, the policies that will take into account climate change and will endeavor to protect the safe and peaceful future of our children in all dimensions. That much for now. And you have the floor, President.
Mr. President, dear Boruta, first of all, I would like to thank you for the very warm welcome. We have already met several times, and this is a special occasion. It is my first official visit to Slovenia, but also personally my first visit to Slovenia, to the beautiful country, approximately the same size as Latvia. And we are both member states of NATO, member states of European Union, and we discussed at length the situation in Europe, around Europe. And I thank you again for the open discussion which we had already and which we will continue in today and tomorrow. First of all, I would say that our bilateral relations are really excellent. One of the best, I would say. And particularly, I would like to thank you for Slovenian participation to the NATO battle group in Latvia, which is a very important contribution to the security in our region and to security of NATO at all. NATO battle group consists of militaries of 10 different nations, and it is obviously not so easy for militaries to have together a unit which consists of different and 10 different countries, and your contribution is very, very important. I thank you again for that. And tomorrow I will visit also Slovenian armed forces here in Slovenia, and also I will say also that is very, very important for NATO as a whole, for Slovenia and for Latvia. I thank you also for the contribution to strengthening of our outer border to Belarus, because you know that there are some tensions on our border to Belarus, and we are guarding our border. You had the same situation in 2015, and we have the full support of the European Union in this respect, and also Slovenia, and thank you for that. We have discussed the situation or the role of Europe and our role, Slovenian and Latvian role in Europe. We agree that in the current geopolitical situation, Europe should become a global player. I think it is unavoidable in order to guarantee our interests, because no state is big enough, not our states, but also like France and Germany is, in my view, not big enough alone to meet the challenges of our time. So we have no other choice. We should strengthen Europe. And by strengthening Europe, we are strengthening also our sovereignty, because our sovereignty is guaranteed by Europe, by NATO, and in the global world, which is completely different as 30 years ago, as we started as young politicians to help to establish our states, the situation is now different. And we should keep this in mind. And our role is, as a small countries, small member states of the European Union, to contribute to strengthen European Union. European Union should act more visible and more strongly in the surrounding and in the world. And we discussed two specific issues where European Union should be more visible, more strong. It is one, as you mentioned, the relations with Russia and our relations with the eastern neighborhood countries, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. You will visit Moldova very soon. I will visit Moldova in December. And I think Moldova is an interesting example. Then maybe it is, so to say, through the new government, it could develop maybe much more faster as we thought before. And we should support these changes, these internal reforms in Moldova. In general, I would say that we agree that all three Eastern neighborhood countries should be given a European perspective in the long term, European perspective. I think this is a word, this is a notion, so that they should carry out the necessary reforms, and after a while, after a certain period of time, we can say, yes, the countries are ready to go forward. So this European perspective is very important in order to stabilize the democracy there. Then we discussed at length the situation in the Western Balkans. We see that the situation in the Western Balkans is worrying, and there is an actual need for European Union to act. We cannot only see what happens in Western Balkans. And I think your initiative to have this summit next week is very important, and you will know more about the situation there. But it is our task, your task as Slovenian president and my task as Latvian president, to promote a more active role and politics of the European Union in Western Balkans. I think we cannot deny the necessity for geopolitical reasons, for economic reasons, for reasons of stability, peace and democracy, to say that the Western Balkans should one day be members of the European Union. And we should say this clearly. Of course, necessary reforms should be done. We should help actively in carrying out of these reforms. Latvia is ready to do it, and Slovenia is ready to do it, so that in order to have in our outer borders, in European environment, stable and democratic states, we should give this European perspective of membership. This is very important. You mentioned 30 years anniversary of our diplomatic relations. Thank you for that. We are both since then responsible for Europe, and you have just now the presidency of the European Council for the second time. We had 2015, our first presidency. I don't know exact when we have the next one, but the presidency is our occasion to put forward ideas and some politics. And I am happy that you have a very consistent and comprehensive agenda during your presidency. We discussed that, and we fully support your agenda, which you are putting forward. And I think there would be real good results on this concerning this agenda. I mentioned to the President that we traveled here from Riga to Ljubljana via Istanbul. And this is so to say, a banal confirmation of need to have more connectiveness and infrastructure in this part of Europe. We were last time in Sofia, Three Seas Initiative, and Three Seas Initiative is in interest of this part of Europe. The 12 member states of the European, of this Three Seas Initiative, together with our partners, US, Germany and European Commission, to strengthen that. And I will welcome then you by the next summit in Riga. Yeah, thank you. So we have a lot of common views on Europe. We are fully responsible for development of Europe as members, sovereign members of Europe, and I think we will work together in order to strengthen Europe, to strengthen Slovenia, to strengthen Latvia in our common interests. And thank you again, dear Borut, for the warm welcome and for the intense program which you should organize for our delegation. Thank you.
Hvala, Egils.